Hi guys, this is Hero. How's everyone doing today? Aj balik kayo ad sub keso ho. Today I'm going over how to interpret a Mercury Ketu conjunction. Okay. Before I start, one thing I need to say is that a lot of the times people like to look at these things like conjunctions or certain analysis of charts to see what might happen, right? But instead you want to think, okay, if something happens, why did that happen, and what astrological combinations influence that internal thing happen that led to the external thing. Let me explain. And this is very important for Ketu, right? This is why Ketu is probably one of the most misunderstood planets and why it's so hard to predict about Ketu, right? And it's designed that way on purpose. Let's say somebody, starts dating somebody. Okay. There is a whole host of reasons why somebody could date this person, right? They could date them because, they really like the person and want to spend the rest of their life with them. They could date the person because they just want to have sex. They could date the person because they just want to fulfill some kind of social obligation to have a partner. They could date the person just because they're lonely or they're insecure or whatever, right? You see the point. There's many different reasons, right? So these different things, loneliness, insecurity, or, companionship, for more on the positive side or things like that, they outlet themselves in different ways, right? So you want to see what things what astrological combinations or things cause these internal things first before you decide the next layer of how things externally will display themselves. Okay. Now here, since I'm already a little bit past a couple minutes, Ketu Mercury, right? Okay, I know you guys only care about the external things, right? So I'll start a little bit off with that. Okay, so this video doesn't go too long. In general, I've seen a Ketu Mercury combination could make someone very, very, very religious or spiritual. Okay, now why? Why did that happen? How did I jump from here to here? Mercury is all about your thought process, right? So if Ketu is influencing your thought process, right? Ketu is a very extreme planet, right? It gets you to decide to extremes, right? So it's like, you almost feel like, man, I have to do this, right? So Ketu could influence the Mercury and say, okay, nothing else makes sense. I have to do this, right? Now, it always doesn't play out like that, right? That's where you have to look at the whole chart and everything like that. But in general, the Ketu influencing the Mercury makes it so that your thought process is really zoned in on one thing, right? So usually it could, a strong percentage of the time, outlet itself to try to do, okay, it definitely outlets itself in a sense of you're trying to do what's best for you actually, right? Not act superficially or anything, but like more from like a karmic soul level. What is that, right? Now, it could expend itself out towards like being religious or spiritual, or, you have a very high percentage of being involved in, those kind of groups or things like that. But it could also expend itself into like some sort of way of giving back to the community, right? And this is where you have to look at, what are the other factors involved, like the sign in the house and things like that, right? Or it could be like you have a very strong mission, right? Like a karmic mission. Like, I need to make sure that, people have a certain sense of security in life. Okay. And whether that could manifest itself, or I hate that word, but if that could, show itself as, starting some sort of company to meet some sort of need to help a certain group of people, then it could also expend itself like that, right? But you'll notice somebody with the Ketu Mercury, like there's no choice in life. Okay, it's not necessarily that Ketu is like this like monster that just destroys the Mercury. No, it just adds a very strong certain effect to the whole equation that Mercury is involved in, right? So when it comes to things like your decision making or your career, and the reason why Mercury governs your career is not just naturally it governs career, right? It governs your decision making, and you use your decision making a lot for your career, right? I want to get that one thing straight right now. Like the 10th house, for example, is not all about your career, right? It's about your purpose in life. Okay, now your purpose has a lot to do with your job, right? But don't get those confused, okay? Moving back to the video topic. So your Ketu, yeah, like I said, it's not this, bad guy. Yes, from a material standpoint, it can be a little bit inauspicious because of how unpredictable it is, right? People love predictability. People love, like, the happy path in life, the, slowly over time making more money, and, XYZ social things happen and blah, 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 right? Ketu does not care at all about the common happy path, right? It only wants to fulfill its karmic mission, right? And that's why these planets are here, right? Because from an ego standpoint, we're like, this shit sucks, whatever, right? But it's not about that when you came here, and it's not going to be about that when you leave here. And when I mean here, I mean like this birth, this lifetime, okay? So back to the video topic. A Ketu Mercury conjunction, we need to understand that, yes, there's certain things that it can be very correlated with, right? And for those further correlations, you can easily look this up, okay? But in general, like I said, it can swing to extremes, right? So somebody could have a very strong religious inclination to almost to the point where, like, they could almost check out of everything else in life. Like, even if they have a job and family and stuff, it's like, Mandir temple is like it's my life. It's my thing in this life, right? Now, that doesn't mean to say just because somebody's very passionate about Mandir that they have to have this combination. Don't also confuse it like that either. But in general, this combination, it can lead to that because, like I said, the Ketu is influencing your thought process, right? Another thing, like I said, is they're very passionate about whatever they do. Okay, from like a job perspective or even from an efforts perspective, but just from a purpose perspective, which usually lines up with their job. But it could be also be some other hobby or activity outside their job. Like it could be like, they're really passionate about teaching karate to kids because like they want kids to be safe. So, or they want, a certain demographic to be safe, whether it's kids or females or whatever, right? Or they want, to save certain animals in the world, something like that, right? And it's not to the extent that, they're going to be these big, charity owners or something like that. It's not like that either. But genuinely inside in their heart, they have a higher capacity to use their thought process for some kind of karmic greater good. I'll just leave it like that, right? Now, how it outlets itself, you really got to see the chart. You got to know, probably you want to get to know the person a little bit and stuff like that. But you'll see this trait, okay? But even me, I'm barely scratching the surface. It's not that black and white. Like, for example, somebody could have this combination, right, of Ketu Mercury, and your thought process could be something like unconventional. Like, I want to, you know, never go to the hospital in my life, right? Now, some people might be like, you know, that sounds insane, okay? But some people could be like, you know, my karmic duty is to heal naturally and things like that. I don't want to take all this medication and, you know, whatever poison or, you know, whatever they give me or stuff like that. So that's it. That's my duty. I just want to really learn the inside of, and you know, learn how to adjust my body accordingly by myself. I never want any sort of modern technique to assist that, right? So there's many different ways that this can play out. Okay, which is something that you need to be very aware of if you really want to get to know this thing. Okay, you could, like, a lot of, like, I'm not gonna say a lot of hippies have this because I don't really know that many hippies, but like when you think of a conventional hippie, they could also have this mindset. Okay, so yeah, that's it. I think for this video, okay, this kind of sheds the like the groundwork. Okay. If you have any further questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section or email. And until next time, I'll talk to everyone later. Thank you all very, very much for watching.